got a book deal, lost my corporate job, basement flooded. So yeah, let's go through it. Hi, my name is Kris. I am a speculative fiction writer. I've been documenting my writing journey here on YouTube since 2021. Back then, I didn't know anything about traditional publishing. I had no idea what the process was like. I hadn't even written my first book yet. All I knew was that I wanted to try achieving my childhood dream of selling and publishing a novel and building a writing career. On this channel, I have vlogged the process of writing 3 books, selling my first short story, querying and signing with an agent, going on submission, and today I get to officially announce that I sold my debut novel, Local Heavens, a queer cyberpunk reimagining of The Great Gatsby, and it will be hitting shelves fall 2025. Writing and publishing a book is a whole roller coaster. For this project in particular, from concept to publication, it will have been a 5-year journey. And it really does take a village to make a book happen. In this video, I just wanted to thank a lot of people. Firstly, I wanted to thank everyone who has watched me on this channel. I wanted to thank the people who helped me write this book, who helped me sell this book. I also wanted to share a little bit about what my experience was like being on submission. Every writer is going to have completely different experience. I know a lot of writers don't talk about it. It can be a really difficult thing to talk about while you're still in it. So here's the full timeline of how everything happened. I first conceptualized this novel back in 2020. I wrote a rough draft that I never finished. Afterwards, I pivoted and I worked on 2 fantasy novels. I finished those manuscripts, I set them aside, and instead of revising those fantasy books, I decided that I wanted to return to this project in mid-2022. So yeah, at this point, I had the experience of writing and struggling through 2 other books, and I felt like I was coming back as a stronger writer. In those 2 years, it was just a process of learning and growing as a writer. And so I'm glad that I didn't necessarily force myself to revise those other 2 manuscripts that I was losing passion for. I'm glad that I didn't jump headfirst into querying those manuscripts because I don't think that they were particularly strong. I also don't think that they were a reflection of what I wanted my career to be like as a writer. If there's anything that I am really glad about in my journey, I chose to just take the time to build a relationship with writing as a craft, to not worry about publishing so quickly. Writing and publishing are completely 2 different things. They require different mindsets, they require different skill sets. Because publishing is a business and writing is an art, as soon as you allow publishing to matter so much to you, you become so beholden to numbers. You can start quantifying the value of your work instead of building that love and passion for the work. I think rejections will always be difficult and they'll always get to you, but I think especially so if you don't take the time to believe in yourself. That's not to say if any writers are querying their first books, your experience could be totally different than mine. Your first book could be the one that is truly the book of your heart and truly the one that is so meaningful to you. I think you should always just follow your gut. For me, my gut was that I knew that this wasn't my best stuff. That is why I didn't try to publish my first 2 books. Local Heavens was the 3rd manuscript that I worked on. So yeah, I returned to Local Heavens mid-2022. I wrote the first draft of what would really become Local Heavens in September 2022. So from September 2022 to May 2023, wrote the first draft. I queried this novel from the end of May to the end of July 2023, and that's when I signed with my literary agent. I revised the book with my agent from August 2023 to January 2024. We went on submission with the manuscript at the end of January, and we received an offer from Bindery Books in July 2024. And the book is going to be coming out fall 2025. So a year from now. If you look at the full timeline from 2020 to 2025, the journey of one book was 5 years. All in all, both querying and submission is an incredibly difficult experience emotionally. It can really damage how you feel about yourself as a writer. Even though querying happened for me fairly quickly, I got my first offer after 6 weeks, which it's not the fastest, but it's also definitely not the slowest. I don't think even then I ever truly felt hopeful about this book until I signed with my agent and I saw her passion for the project. A literary agent is going to be that first person who gives you that first industry recognition. You know, her passion and her enthusiasm meant a lot to me. Yeah, and I'm very grateful to her. For contract negotiation, a lot of this part of the process is spearheaded by your agent. In those few months, like between July and now, I was just like, okay, like I had this news in the back of my mind that I couldn't share. And I've just been writing my next book. But yeah, it's important to have an agent that keeps you in the loop and will advocate really hard for you to get the best terms into your contract. I spent about 5 months on submission, maybe just a little over 5 months. Sub for me was longer than querying was. In some ways, submission worse than querying, but in other ways, it's not as bad. I think with querying, you do feel more alone, but with submission, you feel like you're so close. It's just soul crushing to get so close and then to get rejections. So yeah, it was a very difficult 5 months for me. I mean, submission it really does something to you mentally. In that time, in those 5 months, I was writing a new book, but also I had like the worst mental health spiral ever. I feel like a lot of authors, whenever they talk about sub, they're like, yeah, it was the worst few months of my life. Maybe your sub experience will be a lot quicker than mine was. A lot of things going on in my life at this point in time. So it's not just about submission, but definitely submission like exacerbates everything. So actually in May, a few months after we had been out on submission and we had been getting rejections, I even told my agent, like, should we be revising? And I started brainstorming like ways to potentially revise this book. My agent still believed in it, and so we still kept going. It was tough. Like in June, the next month, I had to literally go see doctors, and that was really scary because I had never experienced that kind of mental health deterioration as quickly as I did. Yeah, I guess my point is that if you are on submission, it is so important to have support in your life, like whether it's your friends or your family or something, because it just like hit me like a truck. Anyways, publishing is not for the faint of heart. What's actually crazy is I have this one vlog. You guys can watch it. I was vlogging like a totally normal, great week. And then literally off camera, because I couldn't talk about it, but during that vlog, I was informed about the offer for Local Heavens, so I was happy about that. But then what happened literally days after we got the offer, I get laid off from my day job. The next day, my parents' basement floods, just destroying everything in the basement. So it's crazy because that vlog, it looks like I'm going through it. One day, I get the best news of my life. We've sold my debut novel. And then literally days later, it's just like, oh, you've lost your livelihood. Also, the entire basement has flooded. You just lose like a bunch of your personal belongings. You can never have a good thing too long. There always has to be something that just like completely ruins everything. That was how July went. My throat is really hurting right now. I'm gonna try to finish this video. I've had just a wacky, wild summer that started out with me having to briefly move back home, got a book deal, lost my corporate job, basement flooded. I'm extremely excited to be able to work with Bindery Books to publish Local Heavens. Specifically, Local Heavens will be published with Inky Phoenix Press, which is an imprint of Bindery. Bindery has a traditional approach to the distribution, production, and editorial side of the process, but for the acquisition and marketing side of the process, for Bindery, books are acquired by different bookish tastemakers who have their own community through Bindery. And these tastemakers partner with authors to help with marketing the book. So I'm super excited to be working with Catherine. She published Strange Beasts by Susan J. Morris, which came out this year. Susan and I actually had a long call back in July, I think, back when I was first deciding whether or not to take this offer. Yeah, I just had a really, really great in-depth call with Susan, and she gave me a lot of advice, a lot of insight. Both Susan and Catherine and everyone at Bindery has just been really kind to me. Catherine, who acquired my book, she's been lovely and supportive, enthusiastic about Local Heavens and throughout this whole process. I think she deeply understands and resonates with this story. I feel like Local Heavens has really found its home, and I'm so excited that you guys are going to be able to read it. I actually have met a good portion of my publishing team already. I've met my dev editor. Everyone's just been really excited and kind. Writing is very lonely, like 90% of the time. It was really surreal, I think, to be sitting on a call with a team of people who are coming together or working together to bring to life a story that for years I was just writing all alone in my bedroom. And suddenly so many people are behind you and helping you make it real. There are so many people that are involved in publishing a single book. Like, people are going to be able to read this thing. People are going to be reading this thing that I tore out of myself, bloodied and bruised. Even though the writing itself is extremely solitary, I think the only reason that I've been able to get this far, having people around me who kept me afloat, both creatively, literally, all of the writing friends that I've been able to make. Just to go back to submission for a little bit, I think all TradPub authors right now are feeling this, but it is a tough market. It's been harder than ever to sell books. Local Heavens is probably best described as like upmarket science fiction. I think the thing that I was always thinking about in the back of my head, and that I was feeling while I was on sub, was that the book wasn't commercial enough for some editors, and maybe not literary enough, or a little too sci-fi, a little too cyberpunk for other editors. I wasn't surprised by the passes that we were getting, because I think deep down I just had this deep insecurity that, you know, going out trying to debut with this like weirder manuscript with a retelling Gatsby is something that we all are going to have like different expectations for. I felt like it was like market wise a riskier project to go out with, like as my first project as like an unestablished author. You know, sometimes it just takes the right people to come together, and it really does just take one. Yes, my agent really believed in this book. The people around me really believed in the book. A lot of traditional publishing is just ebbs and flows. Some genres are just very popular for years at a time. It's a really great market right now for romance fantasy. I'm seeing huge deals for romantasy. That is what's selling at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of dark academia. I think horror is on the come up. Things just come and go. And I think if you're a writer on submission, if you feel like you're not necessarily writing a book that is currently trending genre-wise, market-wise, I hope that you don't allow that to get you down for too long. You really never know who is going to take that chance on your book, whether it's this one, whether it's the next one. Publishing really is about attrition, not allow the rejection to completely destroy your love for writing itself. That is the biggest thing that I have struggled with over the past 2 years. I always imagined debuting with like my marketable fantasy works. I never thought that I would get to debut with a more weirder, literary leaning type of project, and it's kind of a dream. And to be honest, I feel like it's a sign that if you're not writing from the heart, it's not worth it. If you're not extremely obsessed with what you're creating, you're going to burn out so quickly. Writers are often worried about marketability, and it's understandable. I do think that the marketability of your premise matters, but also I think that the only way to truly protect your relationship with writing is to not compromise on your passion. Try to find ways to inject that love into your book. Try to find a way that you can balance some of the more weirder elements of your stories, but to still couch them in something commercial enough, get you through the door. I'm always really inspired by the writers who have had 1, 2, 3, 5 books die on sub and have found their success years later. And while I know that there is a lot of privilege that goes into being able to keep writing and not give up, I also hope that for all writers, you're able to, in whatever way possible, find ways to keep going, even if that means taking long breaks, finding a community, finding people to lean on, finding what kind of stories it is that you really want to tell. I think it's important to not self-reject the book ideas that you think are strange or risky because of the concept or the subject matter or the genre. Because on paper, I think there were a lot of reasons I didn't want to query this book when I started writing it like 2 years ago. But obviously, I'm happy that I did it anyway. I'm happy that I didn't give up on the book idea too early. I think the reason I got as far as I did with Local Heavens in particular is because I knew from the outset that the story was meaningful to me. I wrote it very self-indulgently. You can worry about publishability and pacing and character arcs and plot beats. You can worry about that in revision. Just trying to get through that first draft and you're just trying to get the ideas on the page, really, really necessary to check in with yourself. Am I having fun? A book that I would enjoy first and foremost. And then if I have to make compromises for publishability, I can worry about that all later. You know, when you're publishing a book, you have to read it like 500 times. I have read this entire like 100,000 word manuscript over and over and over again. I have revised it so many times. I'm happy that I know now what it feels like to truly be in love with a book idea, because I know going forward to never settle for less, to keep writing until the passion is there. And if there is no passion, find something to put in there that will make you passionate. The whole process, start to finish, from writing it to now being in these like late publication stages, all of it has been just like such a huge learning for me as a writer. When I wrote Local Heavens, or when I was first starting to write it, and throughout the 2 years that followed, I think I was starting to experience a strange and new and particular bout of loneliness and disillusionment as a young adult that I hadn't ever felt before. And I think in a lot of ways, I wrote it as a way for me to work through a lot of these like new things that I was feeling, maybe a lot of other young people in particular are feeling. And it's about Gatsby's hope against hope and what that really looks like in a cyberpunk dystopia, the beauty and nightmares of technology, the people that fall through the cracks of crumbling social structures. But it's also about how love and hope, longing and desire is a process of radicalization, and people just trying to figure out who they really are and what they really want and where they really belong in a world that is more technologically connected than ever before, but also lonelier and in a lot of ways more inauthentic than ever before. I think beyond the fact that it's this cyberpunk twist on the Roaring 20s, I also hope that it's really at its core just a surprising but satisfying love letter to Gatsby, to the original book, to cyberpunk as a genre. I think one of the things that I'm really glad I got to get away with in this book as well, and this is what I mean by like writing indulgently, but just getting to keep the atmosphere of the 1920s and overlaying that onto this like futuristic, glamorous, but also dark cyberpunk world. And I hope that that tonal dissonance is as entertaining for readers as it was for me as a writer, because it was very fun for me to be able to kind of take on this vocal challenge, this narrative challenge, getting to straddle these two time periods and balancing this very familiar, very romanticized atmosphere of the Roaring 20s, but also this bleak, gritty, fantastical cyberpunk future as the backdrop. You know, there were a lot of moments where I was thinking to myself, you know, I could just write this a lot more of like a traditional cyberpunk way. I could write it very commercially, but I knew that I wouldn't have as much fun. It was a riskier decision. Like, I remember even my agent bringing up a note about like maybe modernize some of the dialogue, and I was like, no, I don't know if I want to do it. That's a bit about Local Heavens if you're new here. But anyways, I should wrap this up. I got to make a cover brief already, which was really fun, and that was like a dream moment. I've always dreamed of getting to make a cover brief. I was so unhinged about it too. Like, so my publisher was like, can you give us, you know, just like a quick summary of the book's like key imagery and just give us some photos for inspiration? I was like, let me send you a 20-page cover brief laid out in Figma with artboards. I was like, here's a summary of the book's core imagery, motifs, theme, setting, color palette. Here's a description of all the characters. I really wish that I had been prepared even a little bit for everything that has happened in the last month. I wish I had vlogged. I wish I had had the influencer brain rot content creator foresight, I guess, to have prepared for the possibility of Local Heavens getting a book deal, because this would have made a great vlog. Anyways, here we are. Yeah, today is August 29th. Oh, hi, Clemmy. The cat is here. You're on camera. Okay. Honestly, okay, this is just, I'm just documenting this for myself, for the record, for whenever I need to like write the script for the announcement video. So when the offer came through initially, just truly a crazy month. That is why I wasn't thinking about vlogging this whole experience of like watch me close a book deal, watch me sell a book, because it just like was not a glamorous month for me. My entire financial security got decimated. But anyways, my publisher and my agent just like sent me an email today basically saying that we're very, very close to contract negotiations being done. And it's just crazy to think that offer for Local Heavens came through over a month ago now, because it was truly the most insane month of my life. I just spent the last several hours trying to figure out cover inspiration. It's like, how do you distill the entire identity of this book that you've been working on for like 4 years? Anyway, that's pretty much all I can share at the moment. I just wanted to let you guys know that Local Heavens is gonna be a real book. Please stay tuned for more news about the cover reveal and when ARCs and pre-orders will be available. You can follow me on my other socials if you want to stay up to date. Ko-fi members will get first updates, and then my Substack newsletter, which is free, and then usually I update all my other socials. Follow me on all of those other platforms if you want to. And yeah, once again, I just like to thank everybody who has helped me on this journey, my Ko-fi community, anyone who's watched my videos and supported the Local Heavens journey, supported me as a writer. Thank you to Kelly, Lynn, Rachel. Yeah, just stay tuned for news about pre-orders in the coming month. If Local Heaven sounds like something you'd want to read, or if you've ever been curious about the book, if you've been watching me write and cry through writing this for the past couple years, then pre-ordering will mean a lot. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled for news on when all of that will be happening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. I hope all your writing projects are going well. I'll see you guys in the next video.